Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, the story takes us to a Wednesday in February 2022. That evening, a man was driving home through the streets of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, through a residential area, dimly lit, and no one was around. As he was driving calmly, the music, down low, he noticed something out on the middle of the road ahead of him. It was a tire. He thought, what the heck. He stopped the car, he put the hazards on, and he got out to move, this obstruction in the middle of the road. And that is when he was ambushed. The story behind is pretty intense. Now let's give it a go. It was on Wednesday, February 16th, 2022 that Jared Bridegan was driving home. It was shortly before 8 AM and he had just dropped off his 9-year-old twins from his previous marriage, off at the house of his now ex-wife. See, Wednesday for Jared and his kids was date night. He was splitting custody of his twins with his ex-wife, so that was a chance for them to meet, to hang out. They would go out for dinner, they would go to the movies, all that sort of thing. And joining them for that date night as well was Jared's 2-year-old from his current marriage. So, it was even better, right, to have this blended family, these half-siblings, really spend some quality time together, really get to know each other. It was a very happy time. And so after spending, some great hours together, Jared dropped his twins off at the house of his ex-wife and her new husband, and then he began driving home to where he now lived with his current wife, with his sleeping 2-year-old daughter in the backseat. He was driving along Sanctuary Boulevard, South Jacksonville Beach, and it's a very quiet suburban area, right on the edge of town where the swamps are. So there's houses out there, but it's often broken up by the dense vegetation and trees and lakes and canals that are everywhere around Florida. And it was as he was driving along this road on a dark February night, he'd just spoken to his current wife, Kirsten, on the phone, that his headlights illuminated something on the middle of the road. Something which, as he slowed the car down, getting closer and closer, he realized sitting there was a damaged tire. He slowed the car down, presumed it had just fallen off a truck or something, and so with his sleeping 2-year-old in the back seat, he put the parking brake on, put the hazards on, and got out of the car to try and drag it off the road. It was seconds after he got out of that car that gunshots rang out. As I said, this was a quiet area. No one was walking the streets and there were no other cars on the road. But people living in the houses nearby heard those gunshots. And minutes later, a witness came across Jared lying in the middle of the road. He had been shot dead. It was clear he was already gone. And then the witness heard crying. And so walking over to Jared's car, they saw in the back seat his 2-year-old daughter bawling her eyes out. Also, disturbingly, they noticed little holes inside the car, like someone had tried to shoot the child too.
News 4 Jax starts right now with a breaking news alert.
And that breaking news alert comes from Jacksonville Beach. Police investigating a deadly shooting tonight. This is a live look at the scene. Police still out there right now.
A neighbor tells me he heard 3 gunshots. He says it was 1 gunshot followed by a pause and then 2 more. He says this...
Jared Bridegan was 33 years old, born in Missouri, but moved to Florida when he was still very young. And at 33, very successful in the tech industry, so he was. He'd started with his own company back in the state of Utah while he was attending university there, lured there by his girlfriend. Mezzi was the company he was a founder of, and it was kind of like a pre-Instagram photo sharing app. It was very successful and life was off to a great start, in his early 20s. In 2010, he married Shanna Gardner, and together they had twins, a boy and a girl, and they moved to Connecticut while he had his team back in Utah. They actually moved to the East Coast because his son, the male of the twins, was born with a heart defect, and so they were told by doctors that it's best to keep him at sea level for his heart condition, so lower the better. Later on, Jared and the family, they went to Florida where he had grown up, and Jared went on to work for bigger companies, off the shoulders of his little startup. I'm talking Canopy, Web.com, and eventually Microsoft. That's where he'd been currently working as a senior design manager. However, as his career had been going, up, his marriage had gone kaput. Shortly after they moved to Jacksonville, Florida, things just became super stressed. I mean, Jared, he was always Stressed, he began putting on weight, he became distant from Shanna. They never had time for each other, and so Shanna began to resent, Jared for this. Shanna was always someone big into exercise, and so as a nice gesture, Jared bought for her a set of personal training sessions with a CrossFit instructor. That, she allegedly began having an affair with the CrossFit instructor, something Jared learned of when he stumbled across some emails between the two that you don't really want to see. Now, Jared was still ready to fight for the marriage, for the kids' sake, at least, but Shanna, she wasn't having any of it. Shanna filed for divorce in 2015, and there were some nasty, I'm talking real nasty allegations coming from both sides. They still lived in the marital home at the time, and this went off the rails real quick. She would say he was disturbing and abusive, and he would fire back, saying she was controlling and manipulative. At one point, he found a hidden baby monitor under his son's bed. She was seemingly observing their interactions, which is just all sorts of creepy. At one point, Jared wrote in an email, quote, "I want the gates of hell unleashed upon her." Eventually, though, the dust settled, and they would go their separate ways. In 2017, still living in Florida, Jared met and married Kirsten, and they would have a daughter together in 2020, followed by another the following year. In 2018, Shanna married Mario Fernandez Saldana, who was a maintenance man at the CrossFit gym she attended, before beginning her own business, Beach Baked 904, Bakery on the Beach.
Hey, Shanna.
Hey, Jean.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm here, wide awake.
Awesome. Well, I know you are a busy baker. You stay up to the wee hours of the morning just baking. Tell us about Beach Baked 904, because you are a brand new bakery at the beach, and I've tried your cookies and they are to die for.
And then in 2020, after dropping his twins off at Shanna's house, Jared drove 2 miles before he was ambushed, shot to death. Police arrived quickly at the scene and found Jared, but he was already gone. His daughter had been quickly rescued from the car and was with EMTs, while Kirsten was racing to the police station. At the scene, though, it didn't look exactly like what they first thought. This had been an ambush, that much was clear. Somebody had placed a tire there waiting for a car to come up when they could, get them. But, first off, you're thinking, carjacking gone wrong. Somebody was just waiting there for the right, moment. But the car hadn't been stolen, and there was no evidence of a struggle. In fact, it seemed like Jared had been shot multiple times in the back, and he had his ring, his watch, his wallet, all his items on him. Gathering nearby CCTV, the police were able to discover that the tire had just been placed there. It was a quiet area and no other cars were seen swerving to avoid it on cameras. Unfortunately, though, the cameras are too far away to actually see, who had done this, who had been there. The police quickly came to the conclusion that this had been an ambush, but an ambush specifically for Jared Bridegan, likely somebody who knew his route home and what time he would take it. The only thing they had to go on at this point was a 2004 to 2008 Ford F-150, which had been seen leaving the area around the time of the shooting. That was it. The police quickly had more resources. The FBI and ATF joined in the search for Jared's killer, asking anyone with information to contact them.
We will find them and they will be held accountable.
His family and friends held a vigil last week begging for someone to come forward.
I have an odd sense of justice is coming. Doesn't mean I'm not going to stop fighting for it, because I think that's important. I think it's important that everyone keeps fighting for it, especially in this community where it happened. But I feel like it's coming.
His widow still holding on to hope for a break in the case.
A reward was offered, $55,000 for any information leading to the arrest and conviction of the killer. And it was Kirsten, Jared's widow, who would not let this case go cold.
Kirsten Bridegan has a phone full of memories, videos and pictures capturing the love her husband Jared Bridegan had for his family.
It's not just this photo you see on TV.
he was a great dad, the best spouse, and I want people to know that so they know why it's important that we find the truck.
In the month and a half since Jared's murder, she has printed and hung up countless flyers at local businesses in Jacksonville Beach and started an Instagram page, Justice for Jared B.
She continued and continued to make this news to make sure no one ever forgot this case. She set up social media sites, did interviews, and tried to spread the word as much as she possibly could, and she did a tremendous job at that. Who could have done this? Well, tracking them would not be easy. And speaking of making it hard to be tracked, this whole video is sponsored by Incogni. Thanks, Incogni. The other day, I was walking down the road, whistling as I often do, just going to return some videotapes. And while I was there, I done signed up to their loyalty program because I love returning videotapes. Next thing you know, my phone is getting so many spam messages, it literally explodes. I know that's not physically possible, smart guy, but I know what I saw. And then my name is out there, my email address, my private information. Whoa boy. And that's how you get identity theft, Ed. Something which has gone up 40% in the last year. Your personal information is being sold without you even knowing about it or even getting a cut. And that is where Incogni steps in. Incogni doesn't only stop your information being leaked and spread, it actually reloads its arms and goes out there to get it taken down. It tracks down all the data brokers out there making money off selling your private info and says, "Not today, pal." I simply signed up and within minutes I could see my information was being removed from these websites I'd never even heard of. Shocking stuff. So to protect your booty online today, please go to incogni.com/thatchapter and use code THATCHAPTER to get 60% off your yearly plan. Incogni stops your stuff being leaked online and it takes it back. So once again, that's incogni.com/thatchapter and code CHAPTER to get 60% off an annual plan. And let Incogni get to work keeping your private information exactly that. Private. Now, back to solving the murder of Jared Bridegan. Months were passing, but the mystery truck was nowhere to be found. And even though Jared had, so tragically passed, the contentiousness between the Bridigans and Shanna and Mario had not gone away. Shanna did not attend her ex-husband's funeral, and it seems like she didn't allow her kids to either. Shanna did have a celebration of life for Jared at her own beachfront property, but from the pictures, since deleted, celebration of life for sure. Just not sure how much Jared was involved in the whole thing. Shanna quickly hired a prominent defense attorney, though, to protect her family from not just people talking about this online, but from, the media, paparazzi, all that sort of thing. And, things were so stressful. 5 weeks after Jared was murdered, they all had to go on vacation. Just get it.
As her innocence has come into question, Shanna Gardner spoke to me in the only TV interview she says she'll be doing to tell her side of the story.
I do want people to understand.
Did you have anything to do with Jared's murder?
No, I did not have anything to do with his murder.
Shanna says she has no idea if the murder was targeted or what Jared was involved in.
Do you have any idea who might have done this?
I do not have any idea. As I said, we've been divorced. We don't run in the same social circles. All I know is that I would never want anybody to go through this.
But a few short months later, it would seem like Shanna and Mario actually split, and Shanna would move to West Richland in Washington State, as far as possible from it all, I guess she wanted to be. Her parents are also extremely, with a big massive E, wealthy. The kids have trust funds. They bought a house for Shanna in Washington. All of that. Likely, they wanted their daughter to move back to the state of Washington. See, her mother, Sherry, owns her own company, Stampin' Up, and it's one of those incredible multi-level marketing, aka pyramid schemes.
It has been a long, hard haul for some of it, but I would not trade it. It has been wonderful, and I feel like every day is a new chance to enjoy that adventure and that journey.
When advisors and people say, hey, you're doing this wrong. Deep down inside, your heart's telling you one thing and everyone else is telling you something else. How do you balance that?
I think it's hard.
At least we know Shanna comes from a family that's full of shit. The investigation would show that the tyre left on the road had been belonging to a 2004 Ford F-150 Lariat. And with that being the vehicle seen leaving, that narrowed it down. In fact, by narrowing down the vehicle by a process of elimination and some other details, this is still an active story, so some details have been redacted. The police landed on the name Henry Tennon. Henry was picked up by the police in August 2022, 6 months after the murder of Jared, arrested on an unrelated felony driving charge. He had a history and a shotgun was found in the trunk of his vehicle during a traffic stop. They used that to bring him in, but detectives quickly began questioning Henry about what he was doing the night off, about Jared, about that car that had been seen in the area. Henry had a history, not a major one though, 9 arrests, but all on minor offences. Now during the questioning, Henry kept his mouth shut, did not say one iota about that night in February. But it was during a background check the detectives noticed something quite interesting. He was renting a house from Mario Fernandez Saldana, the husband of Shanna. A link, a tenuous one at best, but a link between Henry and Jared. The police were able to keep Henry in jail on that driving charge, and it was then in October 2022, after he'd been held for about 2 months. The police, going through his financial records, they found 3 handwritten checks had been made out from Mario to Henry. Which, I mean, Henry was renting from Mario. Why would he be paying him? It was also found out that in February, which was the month of the ambush, Henry and Mario had called each other 35 times. The next month, 30 times. And then after that, like, almost 0. A busy time, it would appear.
Tonight, Jacksonville Beach police have a suspect in a local father's murder. 61-year-old Henry Tennon faces several charges for the murder of Jared Bridegan.
This was a planned and targeted ambush and murder.
In January 2023, 61-year-old Henry Tennon was charged with conspiracy to commit murder, second-degree murder with a weapon, accessory after the fact to a capital felony, and felony child abuse. The child abuse charge stemmed from the traumatized, 2-year-old daughter who had been in the back of the car. Now, whether he did try and kill her, I don't know. That's up for debate. Probably just shots went that way accidentally, but who knows.
Henry Tennon did not act alone.
Then, 2 months later, in March, he decided, you know what, lads, I'm not going down for this. Not today. He pleaded guilty to all of the charges, and he told the story. It had, allegedly, all been over the divorce and the subsequent custody issues between Jared and Shanna. But equally as much as all that, hatred. Pure, unadulterated hatred they had for Jared. I would say that's a fair assessment after what allegedly happened. A full motive hasn't been given, and likely won't until later, but noted were the highly contentious divorce proceedings. And then after divorce was even finalised, complaints were made regularly between Shanna and Jared in court over issues with their kids. Like, sometimes it would be extremely petty stuff, like that Jared would not give Shanna a breathing machine for their son. Now, Shanna already had one, but Jared had like the smaller one, and she wanted it to travel. Extreme pettiness, that kind of stuff. But pettiness, I guess, can build and build and build until it explodes. Likely what happened, Henry was renting a house from Mario. One day, maybe in around September, October, Mario said to Henry, "You want a job?" Henry said yes, and he got some prepayments in advance. Then Henry was told the route Jared always took, found a darkly lit place along that route, and then after Jared dropped the twins off at the house, somebody texted Henry saying he's on the way, and Henry dragged out the tire.
Go to where it says making a difference back there. Yeah. So you're going in the back of my car. I'm going to search you real quick. Sure. Just go on and widen your stance for me. You got anything on you? Got anything on you? No. No? Nope. Really?
On March 16th, Mario Fernandez Saldana was arrested in Orlando, and he was charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, solicitation to a capital felony, and child abuse. Then, months later, in August 2023, Shanna Gardner, she went back to her old name since splitting from Mario, she too was arrested and charged with the same as Mario.
3026, they're making contact at the front door right now.
That's first-degree murder amongst other charges. It was a conspiracy between the three of them. Prosecutors have said they don't believe anyone else was involved. When Shanna was arrested, well, she didn't seem entirely surprised.
Oh, they're gonna call you.
Oh, yeah. And you want me to go first?
And I'm not sure if she either didn't realize the seriousness of it or what, was just trying to play the very sweet, innocent person. She was arrested in the morning, her mother, Sherry, there with her. At one point during the arrest, she tells her daughter she has orders on Instagram.
You have orders on the Instagram that is managing for you. You have orders to just have grandma help you get into. Where are your jeans, Mom? And over there.
As in, like, did she already write out a message of what to do in case she was arrested? Or where are we going here?
It's gonna be the white vehicle back there. Is that property?
Medicine. Good? I'm good, thank you.
So what I'll do is I don't want to keep you in these cuffs for a long time. I know they kind of hurt. So what I'll do is I'll take one hand out and I'm just going to attach it to the railing right there, all right?
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Other officers will be in here shortly, all right?
Thank you.
And prosecutors have announced they are in fact seeking the death penalty against both Mario and Shanna. Henry Tennon, by agreeing to plead guilty to second-degree murder and agreed to testify against both Mario and Shanna, will be sentenced to a minimum of 15 years to life. Recently, by the way, it was signed into Florida law that not all juries have to agree on a death sentence. If like 8 out of the 12 jurors agree this person should be put to death, that's enough. Mario and Shanna have both pleaded not guilty, denying any wrongdoing whatsoever, but both, I think, have an uphill battle against them, seeing how as soon as it happened, the finger pointing and the whispering began against the pair of them. Now, as I said, it should be noted that Shanna comes from a very wealthy family, so Shanna no doubt will have an excellent defense. It appears that most, if not all, of this alleged conspiracy was done via Mario. Any links to Shanna are probably, we don't know, but they could be circumstantial. A likely plan for them is to pin it all on Mario Fernandez Saldana, a Mario who won't be able to afford a very good defense. Now, Mario doesn't have a criminal record or anything. Cops were called on him once because he was walking his dog and a neighbour nearby feeding some stray cats felt intimidated, but that's about it. And it all depends on how much Henry Tennon knew. He has already agreed to testify, and if he was having direct conversations with Mario about the murder, likely was, then that's Mario effed in the B, and he knows it. Maybe what he then do will turn on Shanna, lay it all at her feet. If Mario is facing the death penalty and Henry is going to testify him, it wouldn't surprise me if Mario agreed to plead guilty too. And what really won't help Shanna is that the indictment claims Shanna had been stewing over the idea of having Jared killed all the way back in 2015, allegedly. A Florida Tattoo Parlor staff member said that back then, 2015, in the middle, right smack dab in the middle of the acrimonious divorce, Shanna had been asking if he knew anyone who could, quote, shut him up, referring to Jared. By the way, this just happened to be when Shanna was getting a piercing on her undercarriage. And Beach Baked 904 is no longer selling cookies.
Tried your cookies and they are to die for.
Thank you so much for watching. It really means the world to me that you're taking the time to watch this whole video. As always, thank you. Thank you so much for the support as always. It means the world. Yeah, listen, this wraps up this whole video. The next one will be out in a couple of days, so please look forward to that. But until the next one, until then, please take care of each other and yourselves. Because I love you. Mike out.